it's time to get a tetanus vaccination. The person who's administering you the vaccine is going to pick your right or your left shoulder as the place where they're going to administer it. They may even tell you, that you're going to experience some pain or some soreness, at the injection site over the next 1 to 2 days. You get the tetanus vaccine. Everything appears to go okay. You do have some pain in that shoulder. Maybe it's a little bit more severe than you were expecting, but you're probably still hoping that it's going to go away, like the doctor said, after 1 to 2 days. 1 to 2 days goes by, you still have some pain that is not going away and might even be getting worse. A week goes by and your pain has increased. You may even be starting to have some range of motion issues. You reach up into your upper cabinets and you feel a sharp pain in your shoulder. You try to buckle your seatbelt and you feel another sharp pain in your shoulder. And you're starting to wonder if this is still normal. If you're having prolonged pain or increasing pain after an intramuscular vaccine like the tetanus shot, you may be experiencing a condition called SIRVA, or shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what SIRVA is and how, if you've experienced SIRVA, you may be eligible for compensation through a program called the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. If you think that you are experiencing SIRVA or you have some of these symptoms that I'm going to be talking about, it's important that you go see a medical provider as soon as possible so that they can properly diagnose you and recommend the right course of treatment for you. So first, what is SIRVA? SIRVA stands for shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. The way that SIRVA is caused typically is when a vaccine that is administered intramuscularly is administered in such a way that it causes inflammation of your shoulder joint. So it could be something inflamed in the tendons, the ligaments, or the bursa of your shoulder joint, as opposed to being administered properly into the deltoid muscle. Signs of SIRVA would be pain in that shoulder joint, either immediately or within the first 48 hours of the vaccination. That pain or those symptoms shouldn't go away after 1 to 2 days. Instead, it most likely is going to get worse, and it may then be associated with things like reduced range of motion, decreased strength. So if you go to the doctor and you tell him or her that you had a tetanus vaccination and you've been having shoulder pain ever since then, they're most likely going to put you through some sort of physical examination, may even send you out for some imaging. The diagnoses that we see most often associated with SIRVA include tendinitis, bursitis, frozen shoulder or adhesive capsulitis, rotator cuff injuries, and impingement syndrome. You may not actually be diagnosed specifically with SIRVA. SIRVA isn't a formal diagnosis. So maybe you're diagnosed with one of these other conditions that we see very often associated with SIRVA. Now, depending on the severity of your symptoms, your doctor has treatment options to recommend to you. There's conservative treatment options such as physical therapy, anti-inflammatory medications or pain medications. There's cortisone shot injections. If none of these methods work to resolve your symptoms, some even have to undergo surgeries. Of course, the right treatment is going to be the one that's recommended by your doctor. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program in the context of a SIRVA claim. How do you know if you have a good SIRVA case? Well, first, your symptoms had to have started when you received the vaccination, and the vaccine that you received has to be covered by the program. Typically, we need to prove that your symptoms started within 48 hours of receiving that vaccination. Now, that doesn't mean that you need some sort of medical documentation or proof that you went to the doctor within those 48 hours. But a general rule of thumb would be the closer in time to the vaccination that we have some sort of medical records showing what you're attributing your symptoms to, the better off we're going to be establishing that. Secondly, your symptoms have to persist for at least 6 months to be eligible to even file a claim in the program. So that doesn't mean you have to be in excruciating pain for 6 months, but you need some level of symptoms or residual issues after the vaccination, even with treatment, for at least 6 months to be able to file the case. A couple other requirements for the program specifically would be that you have to have received your vaccine in the United States with very limited exceptions. And you need to file your case within 3 years of the onset of your vaccine injury. In the context of a SIRVA claim, that's going to be around 3 years from the date of your vaccine. So what can you expect when you pick up the phone and call an attorney? You think you may have a SIRVA case. You want to know what the next steps are. So first, you have to call an attorney. The program has some very specific rules. It's good to have an attorney who knows how to navigate those rules and knows how to put your best case forward. And he or she is going to know how to value your claim, what some of the issues are going to be that you're going to face from the government. The best part of all of it is that it's free. The program covers all attorney's fees and costs. You're never going to be responsible for any attorney's fees, any attorney expenses during the entirety of your claim. So let's say you've taken that step, you've retained an attorney, you're going to be put through some sort of intake process. What's sort of unique about the vaccine injury compensation program is that a lot of the work on your case is going to be done up front. What the program prefers, when you file a petition, is that you also file all your evidence. So you're going to file all your medical records, you're going to file an affidavit, you're going to get any evidence you think is relevant to your claim, you're going to file when you file the case. So there's no discovery process, in this program. It's up to you to gather all of the records that's going to prove that you're entitled to compensation. So that's what's going to be happening after you retain an attorney. Your attorney is going to gather all of that pertinent information, all of the medical records, prepare everything, the petition, the exhibits, the affidavit, and file it all electronically with the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Once everything's been filed, then the government will initiate its review. So when I say government, I mean the Department of Health and Human Services, who is represented by an attorney from the Department of Justice. They are going to review your petition. They're going to review all of the medical records. And in limited circumstances, they may even concede that you have a valid SIRVA claim. They may look at your records and see that you meet all the criteria for a table SIRVA claim. You meet the definition. There are no issues with entitlement, and they'll just concede the case. More often, what they're doing is searching for a reason to dispute your case. So they're looking through your medical records. They're trying to find a reason that you don't meet criteria A, B, C, or D, and then they can dispute the case. Even if they dispute the case, there are ways to resolve that case through some sort of settlement or through litigation if necessary. So no matter how your case ends up being resolved, either conceded through some sort of settlement or having to be litigated through the Court of Claims, the damages that are going to be available to you or compensation includes pain and suffering, out-of-pocket medical expenses, and any lost wages or earnings. Out-of-pocket medical expenses is going to be limited to anything that's not covered by insurance or some other means. So anything that you actually had to pay out of pocket is eligible to be reimbursed. Same thing with lost wages or earnings. So if you had to miss time from work because of the injury and you didn't get any sort of disability insurance or other leave that covered your wages while you were out, then you may be eligible to recover that as well. Pain and suffering is probably the most subjective part of the value of your case. Really, it comes down to how severe your injury was, the treatment that was required, the duration of your symptoms, the impact that it has on your life. All of these things factor into what your pain and suffering is, and that's why another good reason to have an attorney with you who is going to be familiar with the value of these claims and how to achieve the best possible outcome for you. You want to learn more about SIRVA and the VICP? Well, we wrote a book about it. If you want to get a free copy, just text us SIRVA to 312-847-2428 and we'll ship one to you. If you believe you have SIRVA, I would invite you to give us a call at 312-578-9501 for a free consultation.